Welcome to the Ridgecrest Lost and Found podcast, where we talk about all kinds of random stuff, the random things that are in your church, or random conversations that we try to have here today. My name's Logan.
I'm Steven.
And today we have Dave Thomas here.
Hey, guys.
How's it feel?
It feels very strange.
You excited?
First time I've ever done it.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
This is great. There's nothing like it. It feels a little awkward at first. By the end of it, you'll be like, this is the best thing ever. We should do this all the time.
You're going to love it.
Okay. Now I'm really fired up.
It's like a more fun Zoom meeting, but we're all in the same room. I mean, it'll be a good time.
That was a bad example.
Why was that a bad example?
Everyone hates Zoom at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you still do any Zoom meetings for your job?
It's just on it's Teams, Microsoft Teams. But yes, do it all the time.
Does that get old, or is it just how life is at this point?
It's okay. It's not bad. Most people don't even turn their camera on.
So that's where we're at this point. Everyone just black screens it.
Yeah.
So it's really just a phone call.
Yeah.
It's a phone call.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. And I look at myself because I turn my camera on because it's the respectful.
Because that's what leaders do.
That's right.
Steven,
Yes.
Did you have an icebreaker?
Are we already at the icebreaker?
I mean, I figure we might as well get into it.
Let's do it. So, Dave.
Yes.
You're Dave Thomas.
Correct.
You married Wendy.
Correct.
Oh, gosh.
How tired are you of the Dave Thomas, founder of Wendy's, comments?
So since I'm at church, I probably should be honest.
Yeah.
Extremely tired of it.
I'm sure you are. So you do get that a lot? I imagine you have to.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Probably just with every person he meets.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Everybody. I was in Ohio last week, and I can't tell you how many people made a comment about my name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they make a comment before they even know your wife's name is Wendy? Like they're just straight up like Dave Thomas? They're like, oh, square.
That's correct. And then I feel obligated to. The only way I could join in on the joke, which is not really funny anymore, is to say, oh, guess what? My wife's name's Wendy. And they say no blank most of the time.
Yeah. And you just have to keep digging that hole because it's just how things work.
It's how, yeah.
So what I thought we would do is just kind of let you tell a backstory, who you are, where you came from, what you do now. And it could be 3 seconds. It could be 3 hours. Probably not 3 hours, though. And then we'll just kind of take it from there.
Okay. So since this is completely impromptu, I did not know what I was getting into on a podcast.
It's part of the fun.
Which is part of the fun.
Yes.
I'm digging it already. So little backstory about me. I was actually born in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay.
I moved to Mississippi when I was in the 4th grade.
How many, do you feel like you have any core memories from that time in Cincinnati, or was it all kind of just a blur?
No, I do have some interesting memories. It's very strange what memories are still there, and very frustrating memories that are not there.
You feel like there were some important parts that you should have held on to?
Well, no, I don't know why I remember stuff when I was 4, but not when I was 54. Yeah. So that's what gets frustrating.
Yep.
So moved to Mississippi in the 4th grade. Moved out to the reservoir.
Okay.
Mill Creek subdivision. This was the best subdivision ever.
Absolutely.
At that point in time, the public school was Pearl. So we were bused to Pearl every day.
That's a trek.
It is a trek. I think my mother enjoyed it.
I'm sure.
Because we went to school at 7 and got home at 5.
Yep.
And then I went to prep, Jackson Prep, the 7th grade. And then Northwest Rankin opened up. So I went to Northwest Rankin 8th, 9th, and 10th grade. And then my parents had to move back to Ohio my junior year in high school, which really sucked.
I'm sure. So did you?
So you moved? I'm assuming.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm assuming you moved down here because of one of parents' jobs.
Yep. My mom and dad were born and raised in Middletown, Ohio, which is close to Cincinnati. And my dad worked for a steel company, steel manufacturing company. His dad was a chemist there. My mom and dad were high school sweethearts. They opened a manufacturing plant in Houston, Texas, and he was responsible for sales in the Southeast. And I just found this out actually this week because I called him and asked him because I was actually up in Ohio visiting. Well, I was working, but I visited where I graduated high school. But anyhow, I asked, hey, why'd you move to Mississippi? And he just said that was a recommended place for a New Orleans regional
Just because
office.
so he could reach different areas.
Yep, a majority of his places were in driving distance from this area.
Looky there.
Yeah.
So junior year, I'm assuming they left.
The manufacturing plant in Houston, Texas, closed.
Got it.
So they said my dad's name's Arba. It's a whole another interesting story.
Okay.
Y'all know Arba in the Bible?
No.
No.
Okay.
I feel bad for not knowing.
Yeah, you should. But anyhow, they said, hey, look, we don't have a job for you down here, but if you come back to Ohio, we'll have a job for you. And so my dad calls the family and says, hey, guys, guess what? We're moving to Ohio. It was awful.
I'm about to say, how did 17-year-old Dave feel?
I think I was 16 at the time, but I would say that is when I turned into a big, ugly jerk.
I thought you were going to say punk, but I understand.
That's
Yeah.
normal at that age, though. So just
Honestly, I talk about this because it is a part of my past that is frustrating to me. Because I was a really good guy up until the end of my 10th grade year, and then when I moved, I think a lot of things hit me.
Yeah.
I actually talked to my sister about this a couple weeks ago when Winnie and I were with she and my dad. Just a lot of things hit me at that point in time. Puberty was going on, and then a place that I loved and was just well accustomed to, a lot of friends, and then just move into this small town, Midwest town.
Did y'all move back to Middleton?
We did not, but it was close.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in that general area.
How many siblings do you have? Is it just the sister?
Older brother and younger sister.
Okay. How old was he?
He just graduated high school. So he graduated from Northwest.
What did he do?
He went to Southern Mississippi for like a semester. And then he didn't like it. And there was something personal that happened to him, which was pretty traumatic. And that kind of jacked him up a little bit too. Then he moved back to Ohio with us. Ultimately, he and I both came back down to Mississippi State.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So, what was that like moving back? I mean, you said you were, what'd you say, a big fat jerk?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So, you just went from Northwest Rankin back to little town in Ohio, just ornery as a hornet?
Absolutely. Didn't know a soul.
I'm sure.
I mean, nobody. I mean, you talk about the mind and how it works. What I remember moving up there, we moved up there so it would have been 84. So it would have been my 16th birthday, right around my 16th birthday. And I remember getting a pair of new shoes.
That's what I'm talking about.
And I'm thinking, thanks, Mom and Dad. What a great birthday present. A pair of shoes and a new house in a new place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the beginning of just a very challenging time.
Yeah, some smart aleckness.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to handle it cool.
Yeah. Did you gain much of an accent being down here and then moving back to Ohio? Was that ever a concern?
It was a point of being made fun of by the guys, but the girls thought it was cool.
So there was a silver lining.
There was a silver lining.
We did I officiated a wedding a couple weeks ago. There was a kid from Marysville, Ohio, some random town, and he came down to work at Pine Lake Starkville, met a girl, got married. I did the wedding, and it was interesting. One, the fact that like people in the Midwest, just there is no accent, or that Midwest accent is just very, I don't know how polished maybe.
Sure.
But there were some differences, not bad differences, but like I could see how, especially your formative years, you're here, and then right when you're like trying to figure out who you are and kind of get some identity, we're just going to pluck you up and put you somewhere very different.
Very different.
So I'm assuming we graduate. I'm assuming we survived. Maybe
we
just a
we
little-
did survive. Yes, we did. We
And you said I got to get down south ASAP.
Yeah, I think it was always in my mind that, hey, let me fight through these 2 years and then I'll get back
Mm-hmm.
to my roots where I like people and people like me.
Mm-hmm.
So
you did full junior and senior year in Ohio?
yes. Mhm.
So the upper. So I mean, that's a big like upperclassman years.
Yeah.
What'd you do, like activity, sports, that kind of stuff up there?
So it's a big soccer and tennis and baseball while I was down here.
Right.
When Northwest opened up, I started playing tennis and I couldn't play baseball because the seasons conflicted. So I was tennis, soccer. Moved to Ohio, and my parents, I told them, I said, hey, I'm done playing tennis. I want to play baseball. And I think that really bothered them because I think they were hoping to get a little support with college, maybe with tennis.
Yeah.
But fortunately, I went to a small school, so it has its benefits. They
Right.
needed athletes, so
Mhm.
I was able to jump right in on the baseball team and play.
Yeah.
So it's not like it is today, for sure.
I've been talking to people forever about it, but there's just something different about Madison. I'm sure it's the same at every really big city, kind of suburb, whatever you want to call it. But it's just so wild here because I'll talk to parents or just people that are older that grew up in small town wherever, and they're like, I've lettered in 3 sports and I
Yeah.
played everything, and like my son can't even be a manager on the Madison Central team. And I'm like, there's 150 kids trying out for 10 spots.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's part of it that can be frustrating, and there's another part of it's like, I don't know what a coach would even do. I mean, what do you do when you have 150 kids showing up?
Yep.
And it's just getting so, I hate to use this word, but elite. I mean, I even look at like the tennis program now. Like Madison Central and a lot of these schools have crazy good tennis programs.
Yep.
It's wild.
Well,
But-
look what MRA's doing.
I know. They want to be the premier tennis school.
I mean, they want to buy land and build tennis courts.
Right next to Ridgeland Tennis Center.
Yes.
That was a wild comment. Anyway, or that's a wild move on their part, not a comment. So you got to play baseball.
Got to play baseball. Yep.
Yeah. That's
And
cool.
and loved it. That was I loved playing baseball.
This is a total left turn. How did you feel about moving to a 4-season location? Did you like the snow in the winter, or were you like, I just want to go
Well,
back home?
it's the climate's relatively similar. There's not a ton of
I thought
snow.
there was more.
You're in
winter.
the southwest corner of Ohio, Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're right on the Kentucky border.
Yeah.
So you got more snow, of course, but not a ton of snow.
Okay.
Not a ton of snow. I did appreciate the 4 seasons. I do miss that. I do
Yeah.
like the fact that there's a longer fall,
Yeah.
and so it kind of breaks up the.
I don't feel like we really get a fall.
It's a couple days, maybe.
Yes. Absolutely. So is that kind of the main thing that you did when you were a junior and senior up there? I'm trying to feel like if I was you and I was just ticked off, I want to go back home, or what I think of as home. I'm trying to think of like, how do you either muddle through 2 years, or how do you get through it?
What a great question. I'm just kind of curious. Who listens to these podcasts before I answer this?
No one that knows you, I guess.
I mean,
What's the correct answer?
yeah. Church members,
Yeah.
friends.
So the truth, most of the truth, without getting into too many
Yeah,
details,
Of course.
it was a really, really, I mean, it was a terrible collision of a lot of things.
Yeah.
The puberty aspect, the anger aspect, the way people looked at me in Ohio was different than the way people looked at me in Mississippi. So
Mhm.
all that was changing. So I wasn't this cute little nice guy anymore. It all that coming together, I had to do everything I could to deal with it.
Yeah.
And it was that that's when I started lifting weights. That was an outlet for me to say, let me just get some of this anger out.
Mm-hmm.
The sports aspect was very helpful. I played soccer and baseball. I probably should have played football, but I couldn't play soccer and football at the same
Yeah.
time because it was a small school. And, I knew some of the coaches from class, and they were like, hey, why don't you come play football? I do have a cool football story.
Oh.
So, and then, dating girls was totally different because I had, one girlfriend when I was down here. So all these things just came together, and it was just a big explosion in my life. And, a lot of really, really poor decisions occurred.
Mm-hmm.
And, hindsight, it's kind of one of those things. If I did not believe so passionately about God's grace and God's mercy, I think I would be carrying just a weight load of guilt and shame, quite frankly, just to be totally transparent, on a random podcast that I've never done before.
I'll talk to parents, and it's usually late middle school, ninth grade, early high school, and they'll just say like, I don't know what to do with blank kid because they're just we're messing things up. Like my kid's screwed up now. And I always have to tell them, like, you just have to survive that time. And, like, because there's something about boys when they're going through puberty, they just have no clue what's in their body. Like, they don't know what's happening. They're growing like a foot a year. Everything's changing. They have no idea what's going on. So I was like, they're just off the rails. And then girls just, it seems like, and you have daughters, so you can tell me if I'm wrong, there's just a moment in their life. Some is way longer and some is way shorter, where they can just be the meanest people on the planet. And it's just, these kids just go through these phases where I was like, whenever that happens, I'm like, you just got to survive it. You just get through it, try to do your best with them, and like, they will come out the other side.
Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, really it's, you have to help them survive.
Yeah.
You as a parent, you need to take care of yourself,
Uh-huh.
but you really need to make sure that your child survives. Because I reflect back on some of the decisions I made and why I'm still here. I can only, it's not fair. It's not fair that some people have not made it through that very, very challenging life, whether it's through, an overdose, whether it's from a drunk driving accident, whether it's from, a suicide.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's talk about it. It's that challenging of a time, and there's so much going on in your head that you just don't know how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have all those forces coming at you at one time, I really, we need to equip our kids to learn how to deal with it, and that is a big challenge that I don't think parents are always up for the challenge.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was going through school and some of your kids were going through school, there was a time where like every year at Madison Central, there was a suicide.
Yeah.
It was like you were almost just kind of waiting to see who killed themselves or who accidentally shot themselves or who did blank. And so, I mean, I think sometimes I don't know if we forget or we just gloss over. We think that doesn't happen anymore, but like kids go through a ton of stuff, and it's kind of, in some ways it's different, but in a lot of ways, like teenagers have always just had to deal with hard things, and that's just part of it. But yeah, I agree with that. It's a crazy time.
Yeah, it really is. And, I think as I reflect back on it too, as a parent, you're sitting there going, hey, look, wait a sec, a suicide did occur. Is that something my child could be going through?
Yeah.
And so then you have to adjust and say, hey, wait a sec, am I being too hard? Am I pushing them in that direction? And it's so as a parent, you're just really, really confused as to, hey, how am I supposed to discipline this child without, leading him down a path of his own destruction?
Yeah.
Or her destruction.
I had a conversation with a parent. Had a son. The son was a senior, and that was where the conversation went. Was he said, I want to motivate my son, and I want to push him. Like I think he needs that, but I don't want to push him too hard. And that was kind of that's kind of the first time I really thought about like where's the line, and there is no line. You have to figure it out with your kid and you yourself. But having a 5-year-old, we're just barely getting to that point where it's like, how do I rein them in, but also motivate them and push them to not be a bum without creating, a huge therapy bill, or at least quite as big of a therapy bill that they're going to have later.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And you got to find that line. But I will tell you this. I mean, you brought up something that's really, really interesting. Therapy.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that my generation, that's just had a stigma to it that was just, hey, look,
Right.
not good. I mean, if you did that, you're really jacked up.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel totally different now as a 55-year-old man with 4 grown children now. Therapy is not a bad thing. It is a very good thing because, my parents, I mean, I was angry at my parents at that stage in my life. I wasn't in Mississippi. When I moved to Ohio, I couldn't stand them.
Right.
They wrecked my world. So you think I'm going to listen to them? No way. So, I do think that there's something that we should talk a little bit more about, and that is that right there. Not necessarily on this podcast.
Well, we can talk about it.
Well, I'm just saying that to have a mediator, is a really, really good thing.
The best thing a counselor did for me, because I've been going to one for 2 or 3 years on and off, was it let me get thoughts out. That was when I realized that I have the emotional vocabulary of a child, because I would be talking about how I feel about something, and the counselor would say, like, well, like, explain to me like how it makes you feel, or how this situation, how you react to it. And I was like, I feel bad. And he's like, okay, that was good. That was great. What do you mean by that? And I'd be like, not good. and he would be like, okay, here's a list of emotions. Let's just work through it. And even that was, that was incredible for my marriage, even, because, Megan would be like, tell me how you feel. And I'd be like, angry. And she's like, okay, why are you angry? I'm like, I don't know. Get away from me. And even now we'll have conversations where I'll say, like, I need like 5 minutes to think through how I feel about this. And, 9 out of 10 girls are just like, I immediately feel worried because I'm upset about this, and this led to this. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great for you. I need a few minutes to just kind of think through it. But then, like you also said, it's great to have someone who's not a parent to say, like, hey, this is probably a blind spot for you. You probably need to think through this.
Yeah.
So I think it's great.
Yeah, I'm super excited that my oldest daughter is a counselor.
Yeah.
And I think will be a absolute wonderful counselor, because it's just needed now more than I think ever. And I can't put my finger as to why. Well, here's my theory.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all want to know my theory?
Love to.
Seriously, Stephen?
What?
You really would?
I really would, yeah.
Okay. I couldn't tell if that was sincere or not. If
It
you're just playing along because it's a podcast.
No, I'm serious 100% of the time, all the time. Never told a joke.
Okay. All
That's
right.
not true.
Yeah. I am serious this time.
Here's what I think. So, based upon my belief, the greatest commandment is what?
Love your neighbor as yourself.
Love the Lord your God
Yeah.
with all your heart, soul, and mind. And the second is love your neighbor as yourself. And so I feel like a lot of people get that, and they say, I got to love my neighbor as myself. But they never dissect it out or break it down and ask themselves, do I really love the person I'm looking at in the mirror?
Yeah.
And I think that's where it gets broken down.
Mm-hmm.
We look at ourselves in the mirror, and I don't think we love ourselves.
Right.
And there's multiple reasons why we don't love ourselves. And they might be decent reasons even.
Yeah.
And if you don't get that right, you can't get anything else right. You can't love your spouse the way that God intended for you to. You can't love, your children. And so, when I reflect back on myself as a as a teenager, I hated myself.
Mm.
I mean, I just did, whether it was guilt, whether it was shame, whether it was anger, why do I despise my parents right now? Multiple things come down and you don't realize it. And so I think that's a big problem. And social media sure the heck hadn't helped things out
No.
with people loving who they are. And the only way you can love yourself is to look in the mirror and say, okay, why should I love that thing in the mirror?
Mm-hmm.
And it's because God created you in his image
Yeah.
and he loves you. So I think we got that pretty jacked up.
And it also says that about husbands. In
Yeah.
Ephesians, it says,
Yep.
love your spouse like you love yourself. And it's that same thing. Paul looks at it like we cherish and nourish ourselves. And he was probably looking at it more like physically and like an athlete does. But there's still the aspect of like what you said, like if you hate yourself, chances are you're not going to treat the people around you the greatest, because the way that you treat yourself is how you treat others. And it just kind of rebounds that way. But yeah, the comparison trap has been a huge deal.
Oh, yeah.
Where people are like, "Oh, I'm 25 and I don't make six figures," and like your wife or a woman will look and say like, "Well, all these people have figured out and every picture's perfect," and and even they even know now, like they know it's curated, but still they're like, "But that means that parts of their life are really good." And
It must be.
yeah. And like my life feels terrible right now. So I don't know. It's a balance of like, it feels like we're dealing with a lot of stuff between the ears now, maybe more than ever, but also I'm happy that in this moment we the stigma of counseling and therapy has kind of gone away.
Yeah.
Or at least it's welcome now. Cause like I'll talk to people and they're like, that's just not what we do. We're not those kinds of people. And I'm like, everyone would do well just to go talk to somebody.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't matter if you had this huge traumatic event, even though I feel like most of us have had some kind of traumatic event. But even if you're just a normal person, like it's helpful to go talk things out.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
So, you had a football story, and then we'll move past Ohio.
Yeah. Okay, good. Let's get the heck out of Ohio.
That's what I figured.
Please. So in high school,
Yeah.
I played soccer, and my junior year in high school, I had the fastest guy I had ever seen. So I was in public schools down in Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
Knew some pretty fast dudes.
Yeah.
This guy was fast, and he played soccer, and he was terrible at soccer.
I was about to ask how his dribbling worked with his speed.
Dribbling, shooting, none of that. But we could pass the ball up, and he would fly by everybody, and
Yeah.
I don't know how many goals he missed.
But he had some attempts.
He had some attempts. Well, his senior year, he was a track star.
Figured.
His senior year, they talked him into playing football. So he was a running back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he was pretty good because he was, super fast. Well, long story short, the dude ended up playing for the Buffalo Bills.
There you go.
Played in the Super Bowl. You guys wouldn't remember this. You probably weren't even alive. But the Bills played in like 3 or 4 straight Super Bowls.
What's the Super Bowl? I'm just kidding. I know what that is.
That was what, late 80s, early 90s? Or was that?
Yeah, it would have been early.
So that was like with
it-
Jim Kelly and all them? Or was that
yes.
a different time?
No, you're right. Yeah, Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, those guys.
Look at this. Look at that.
Anyhow, he
Way to make me look worse.
he received the kickoff, the opening kickoff, and fumbled it.
Mm.
But he recovered it.
Yeah, that's all that
But
matters.
still, I was like, man, I know that guy.
That guy who just messed up, I know him.
Yeah. Anyhow, that's a whole nother story. It's he has an interesting life and did some pretty wrong things, but has turned his life around too. But,
Well, hey, there we go.
yeah.
So, we graduated. We got the heck out of Ohio. Went to Starkville.
Yep. So went to Starkville. I was a mess. My parents dropped me off, and I don't mind telling you guys this either. As much as I was just wanting to get the heck out of Dodge, and just let me live my life, but hey, send me some cash in the meantime.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I remember about college. A couple weird things is going through orientation and me signing up for classes, and next thing you know, I've got 18 hours and I'm taking calculus.
Yeah.
Why, I have no idea. But I remember my parents. I remember that part of it, not thinking anything about it until the first week of school, and realized, hey, wait a sec, I can't do this, and school. And
But is that your personality naturally that like, oh, this all sounds great, I'll just do this? Or was that kind of just, you kind of noticed like that this was a mistake?
well, at the time, I just thought it was normal.
Okay.
Just, I mean, what do I know? I don't know I don't have anything to compare it to.
Right.
I had no idea what I was going to get into. I did play soccer at Mississippi State. It was a club sport, a real organized club sport. So I didn't know what that looked like either. Fraternity. I did the fraternity. I don't know why I did the fraternity, just because a lot of my friends from Northwest Rankin did a fraternity. But I remember my parents dropping me off at the dorm basically and saying, okay, what do you do now? They're going to drive back up to Ohio, 11 hours or whatever. And they're probably saying, man, let me get rid of this cat. And I remember going to my dorm room, just laying my head down on my pillow and just kind of weeping, just kind of like, man, you just realize, hey, this is a change. And I realized, so there's still, I can reflect back on it and see God just continuing to ping me.
Yep.
Now I can. But at the time, I was like, all I could think about was, your parents have done nothing but loved you.
Mm.
And they hadn't made your life easy because they moved to Ohio. It's not because he had a choice.
Right.
He had to do it in order to continue to provide for her. So I think part of that was an emotion of, again, going back to, hey, man, who are you? You are such a punk, and you even see that you're a punk.
Uh-huh.
And how did I deal with it? I just went out and partied and did everything that I could because that was just that rebellious state.
Mm-hmm.
So then, you start all your classes and the fraternities, and, somebody's going out on Monday nights, somebody's going out on Tuesday nights because they don't have classes on Wednesday. Somebody's going out on Thursday because they don't have classes on Friday. Well, I just wanted to be involved with all of them. I wanted to be friends with all of them.
Yeah.
So I was trying to navigate, how do you play every night? How do you play soccer?
Uh-huh.
And how do you take 18 hours? So I immediately learned the simplicity of dropping classes, which was pretty easy and awesome.
Yeah.
And so that first semester was a big challenge.
Uh-huh.
The second semester was a little bit better. Still, similar behavior was not making real good decisions.
Does the first semester get everybody? Did it get you at all?
No, but I went to Holmes for my first semester. With me, it was because it was such a culture shock for me, which I guess it helped going to Holmes first. But I went from being homeschooled my entire life to 13th grade, as they call Holmes, is what I've heard. And for me, I'm really not trying to be pompous, but for me, it was like, oh, this is easy. Like, the classes weren't a problem until I got to algebra. That kicked my butt. But I had a similar kind of response when I went to MC during my junior year. When I got there, the first few nights were hard. That first week was tough because it's just this moment where after all the moving around and getting everything ready, when that door shuts and you're in the dorm by yourself and you realize, oh crap, I'm not going back, this is it. That was tough, and that was a big adjustment. But no, college for me, the classes didn't bother me at MC because since I got my cores out of the way, I was able to just kind of.
And you're just so intelligent. I mean, it's just a
You
breeze.
said it, not me.
We used to call certain people at Holmes, we called them Holmes Gold because Ole Miss used to have gold parking permits. And so the people who failed out their first semester of Ole Miss and were at Holmes the second semester, you drive by and see those gold parking permits on their car. We called them Holmes Gold. It was great.
Did you know what you wanted to study?
No.
Okay.
When I was at Holmes, I just did general studies. Got all my cores out of the way. When I got to MC, I thought I wanted to be an English major, or that's something that I knew I enjoyed was writing. And after I checked out the English department, I went to the Avon dungeon.
Communications.
Yes. And Dr. Kusha I touched base with her and got to talk about that kind of stuff, and she got me interested. So I started with mass media communication, and I just really liked it and thought it was a good versatile choice because I knew I wanted to work in potentially something adjacent to writing or mass media, some kind of multimedia project kind of stuff. So I figured I don't know what I want to do right now, but this seems like the best door to get there. I almost majored in psychology because for a while I wanted to be a counselor, but I didn't think I could keep up with all of the research papers and stuff, and I panicked, so I went to something that made more sense long term.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you were doing engineering. So while you're taking calculus, were you doing something else?
No, I had calculus in high school, so I needed a math, so I took calculus. That did not help my GPA.
I'm sure it didn't. But,
Yeah.
you know, my GPA floundered just because I thought I was going to med school, and so then I found out I wasn't good at science. I almost failed out of college my freshman semester. So I know that feeling.
Yeah.
I was on the dean's list my first semester
I was on the opposite.
at home.
I was on academic probation.
Yeah. When I got to MC, I no one cared. Like I was the perfect, just okay student. Was my time at MC.
No, nobody really cares.
Yeah.
We had some people in the business office that were just crazy. We had a guy I was doing finance, and the guy was it was all formulas. One of those professors, he would just spend the whole time writing formulas, and then you were spending your whole time writing formulas. And there was a guy on the front row just watching, and I remember being like, "What an idiot!" And then sure enough, he made like a 98 on his first test, and I immediately was like, "Hey man, how do you do
Can
this?"
we be friends?
And he's literally like, "If I see it, I know it." And he had one of those minds where he was like, I follow him as long as I can watch it happen. He's like, I have it memorized. He did pretty well for himself.
Formula-based math is the worst.
Not to that guy.
To me, my mind wanders too much. And like when I took algebra at Holmes, I struggled a lot, and I got through fine, but it was very different because that was the first thing, because I think it was my second or third semester. I did that, and I was like, oh, this is bad.
Yeah.
This is really rough.
You know what you would have hated?
What?
Calculus.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I can't do the long formula stuff. I just get too distracted.
So you were just doing core work, general studies, or you were just having a good time?
Well, I had no major.
Yeah.
I had no direction. I had no idea why I was there, to be honest with you, except for get the heck out of the house
Yeah.
and have my freedom.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so me and a buddy of mine that I grew up with at Mill Creek, he moved away and he came back to Mississippi State. And we argue every time we see each other who was the last person to be initiated, because it went from top GPA to bottom. I still think he was, but he claims I was. So it's hard to argue.
Yeah, it's just a
So, yeah, I mean, when you go down, you go there too, and this is a whole nother issue with I think kids these days too. Oh my gosh, I'm about to get out of high school. What am I going to do with my life?
Yeah.
And for me, I even felt this way after college. You got these guys and these buddies that you know, and they're like, oh, heck yeah, man, I'm going to be an accountant. I'm going to be an engineer. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to go to med school.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be an architect. And I'm like, what are you going to do, Dave? I have no idea.
Uh-huh.
And so there's that, that's a bad feeling.
Oh, yeah.
When everybody's got their life figured out and you feel like you're the only one that doesn't have a clue. And look, just for those listening in the audience, it's okay if you don't know what you want to do when you grow up. Because I'm 55 years old and still don't have a clue.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's good for some people. I feel like for some people it's helpful to be like, I've known since I was 3 that I was going to be a doctor, or I was going to take over the family business. And for other people, like, there's something really cool about how things just kind of work and they weave themselves in things. And like you said, in hindsight, you can look back and you can say, oh, God did this and then this and then this. And so I'm assuming that's what happens for you, but it's cool how that works out.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I could tell you lots of stories about how, I didn't know what I was going to do next, where it just a path was created.
Yeah.
I first job was rough. I'm working for an auto parts manufacturing company, and all these people I hang out with, they're accountants, they're engineers, they're in med school, they're nurses, they're whatever. And they this already, they're 23 years old and they got to figure it out. And here I am going, my job sucks and I see no way out.
Yep.
Because I don't have this specialty.
Yep.
But, that's the way you feel. And but that's not always the reality.
Mm. Where does Wendy come in?
So my sophomore year of college, the fall of my sophomore year in college, that's where Wendy showed up.
I'm a big fan of hers. I'm sure she was just as great in college, but like now, I'm a big fan.
Well, you know what? Everybody was a fan of Wendy's and still is.
Yeah.
You know she was Mississippi State homecoming queen?
No.
Did you know that?
I'm not surprised. Not a
Yeah.
single bit.
In spite of her boyfriend. But the reality is she got it when I was out of school, so that probably helped her.
They said, okay, out of the way.
So what a great story it is with me and Wendy because, I was lost. She was probably, I think she would tell you that she was not making the best decisions at that point in time either because she was a freshman. She was not academically inclined. So she was a majorette in the Big Maroon
Yep.
marching band. And I had a friend from Mill Creek. So back when I was over at the reservoir.
Sounds like every good thing in your life happened in and around Mill Creek.
There's no doubt. There's just a lot of good stuff happening there. But this girl said, hey, I really want you to meet. I think she said she wanted Wendy to meet me. And so she and Wendy came over to the fraternity house.
Mm-hmm.
And the girl was dating. Yeah, she was dating, a long time dating the same guy from Northwest Rankin that I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how the connection. So it was easy for her to come over to the fraternity house and introduce me. So that's how that began. And we had a long journey through college now. I mean, it was, matter of fact, I remember doing having a conversation. It might have been in a life group when we first got married. And the question was, hey, was it love at first sight? And I think we played kind of like the newlywed game.
Yeah.
Kind of like the shoe game.
What's the shoe game?
Where you who's more likely to forget something? You hold up either your shoe or her shoe.
Okay. So yeah, kind of like that. And so almost at the same time, she was like, yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. And then I realized, oh, that didn't go over real well with Wendy. But the reality is it all comes back to what I think I was originally saying about loving yourself. I was incapable.
Right.
And I told her, I said, look, I knew you were somebody that I would want to marry because of all of your qualities, every one of them. But at the same time, I just really think at that time in my life, I was incapable.
Yeah. You were just not, you weren't at that point.
Mm-mm.
And so y'all figured it out, just got through school. I'm assuming marriage came pretty soon after school or later?
Yeah. She graduated and I'd had a job. We got married in July and she graduated in May.
Okay.
So we went straight
nice.
into, yeah.
How did her parents feel about you? Were y'all just great or?
No, not really. I thought I was kind of I think that they thought I was kind of a sloppy mess. I would love to have Wendy on this podcast.
That'll be the next episode.
I would look at her and say, "What do you think, Wen?" I don't think they were a big fan.
Yeah. You had to grow on them, is what you're saying.
Yeah, because I had to grow myself.
Yeah.
I mean, because there were just still a lot of immature factors going on.
So what happened after that? Did you immediately come here, or was it a long journey that got you here?
Right out of school.
I figured you'd be moving back to Mill Creek and be like, let's get a house, let's figure it out.
So really, what was going on when I was a senior, this was a year prior, I was interviewing for this job which ended up being my first kind of professional job.
Right.
And the guy just couldn't hire me. He said, I just can't hire you right now. So I called my mom and I said, I'm in Starkville, Mississippi, and I'm like, "Hey, Mom, I need some more money." And she said, "Hey, honey, your last check's in the mail." And I was like, "Okay, appreciate it." And I was, wait, the last check. And she said, yeah, "I'm done with you. You got a degree. We paid for you. You're not getting another dime from me." I said, "Mom, but I'm waiting on a job. The guy says he's going to hire me, and she said, "I don't care. Then you need to go find another job." And this is how I remember it. The next day, I drove with a fraternity brother of mine to South Carolina. And the following day, I started working in a Georgia Pacific mill.
There you go.
And that lasted for about, 6 weeks. And then that guy ended up hiring me, so I came back here.
And you were like, "But I just really want to work in this paper mill so much." But you said, "I'll just go ahead and go."
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard paper mills are a very special place. I've heard they're
I will
awesome.
tell you, I met some awesome people. No, no lie.
I've never heard anything about the workers at paper mills, but I've heard a paper mill is a special place.
It was, it was a special place.
We're probably skipping ahead at this point. How did you and Wendy get involved with Ridgecrest?
So when we got married, we went to Christ United Methodist.
Yeah.
And we had an incredible small group. A lot of people, exact same age, exact same life stage. Man, it was such a wonderful experience. I can say of about 40 couples that we ended up crossing paths at that point in time, maybe one of those couples got a divorce. It just says a lot about that foundation that we all had, as well as some of the teachings that was going on at that time. Then I got another job that moved us to Lafayette, Louisiana.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that was a big step from job number 1 to job number 2.
Where were the kids at in this point?
No kids.
Okay.
So we moved to Lafayette. Wendy's never lived outside of Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very difficult. As soon as we moved to Lafayette, we found out we're pregnant with the first child.
There you go.
That lasted about a year. And then I got another job, same company, moved over to Covington, Louisiana, which was a great experience. Child number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then we moved back here.
Was that because she wanted to be near family, or she was like, "I got to get out of here"?
Yeah, that's another long story about how jobs transition and
gotcha.
how God opened doors that worked out really, really
Mm-hmm.
cool.
And then
When we moved back here,
yeah.
I've been with the same company ever since, 27 years or so.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And just instead of going back to Christ United, you just moved over here?
So we went to Christ United Methodist when we got back, and it just wasn't. So I don't know how else to explain it, except for, hey, this is just not where we're supposed to be, and we knew it. I can't. It was something in our spirit, both of us, that hey, this place, something's not right for us.
Yeah.
And so then we started looking for other churches. And I'm going to tell you the story how I remember it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get Wendy in here for the B side.
Yeah. But please, the truth's got to come out at some point in time. So we visited Ridgecrest. We visited Broadmoor. Those were, I think, we visited First Baptist.
Yeah.
I don't know why we visited Baptist Church because we went to First Baptist Covington, which was an incredible experience. That's actually where I got baptized.
Okay.
I was born Methodist, so I'd never been.
Yeah, you were sprinkled.
I was sprinkled. So anyhow, we visited those 3 churches, and one of the times we visited, do you know Chip Starnes?
No.
He's a Baptist pastor.
Okay.
Somewhere down in around Mobile.
Okay.
Spanish Fort, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
So anyhow, that's her cousin. He was preaching here when Phil Walker was going to Russia, did a mission trip to Russia. So we visited, and there was something that was just really special. And when you walk in the doors of Ridgecrest, you just felt, you just felt at home. Even though it was big, you just felt really welcomed. and it was just a neat little experience. But there were aspects of, I think, Broadmoor that we liked. We still didn't know.
Yeah.
And how I remember it, we literally decided, hey, look, we can't keep floundering.
Mm-hmm.
We need to commit to someplace. And how I remember it, we actually put maybe the 3 churches in a hat, and we were going to draw, and we were going to
cast lots.
I mean, I know it sounds goofy, but and what I remember is we put the hat like up above our heads, whoever it was, me or Wendy, and before anybody could grab the piece of paper, a piece of paper popped out, and so we picked it up off the ground. It was Ridgecrest, and that's.
Don't you just love? I call that God stuff.
I mean that's how we interpreted it, because
Yeah.
it was so weird, random.
Mm-hmm.
Now Wendy might tell it different.
She was like, I had to knock this Ridgecrest thing out so Dave would pick it up.
she might say, well, Dave, it really wasn't Ridgecrest that fell on the ground. It was another one. So
did she write the notes? Maybe they all said Ridgecrest, and
well, you couldn't read her handwriting, so I'm pretty sure that
I know that feeling.
I'll do something like that, except it's not a God thing, but it's just Megan's personality. We'll be deciding one of 2 things, like a restaurant or something. I go, all right, we'll flip a coin. Like, heads is this, tails is this. And we'll flip it, and whatever it lands on, I go, all right, this is what we're doing. She'll go, no, we're not doing that. I'm doing the other one. And she just, something about her having to decide. She's like, I know what I'm doing. And so, complete opposite of what you're talking about. But
yeah, but the completely the same with my marriage. So
yeah,
you ain't alone, bro.
I have a question about you being at the same job for 27 years.
Okay.
So I feel like maybe even it's the generation before you, or maybe part of your generation, where it was like you were a company man. Like you joined a place and you were there for 25 years. You got the pin, all the stuff. You've been at the same place for a while. What would you tell someone starting out, like early mid-20s? Would you say like, hey, try to find a good spot, and if it's good, ride it out? Or would you say, hey, find the right places and move around because the company doesn't have your best at heart? How would you go about that conversation? That's something I'm interested in.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure how I would answer it. When I went from job 1 to job 2 to job 3 to this one, all in a 3-year time period, my dad was really concerned.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, no.
Because of how it makes you look, or?
I think he just didn't understand. I think he thought I was, I needed therapy, is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
He just didn't understand it because he had been with that same company for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, man, what are you doing?
Right.
How I would say it now, if someone were to ask me, I would say a Bible verse. I would say Proverbs 16:9 is a very, very powerful Bible verse that God revealed to me about 3 years ago when I tried to get another job within the same company. And it's something like the heart of man establishes the plans, but the Lord determines the path. It's something like that.
Yeah.
And so when you start trying to I don't know, it's almost like you try to create your own steps, your own pathway. And if you really want the correct pathway for the way God designed you, you have to ask God to help you see those steps. Because the question is, okay, do you want to follow your own plans, or do you want God to develop your steps? And so I need to do a better job of memorizing Proverbs 16:9.
I thought it was great.
But it's very confusing because you feel like, hey, emotionally, it's
Yeah.
time for me to go somewhere, and this is what I want to do. I thought for sure I was going to get this other job that I was applying for. And that's a whole nother story, which is a God story, because I was pretty upset I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And then I sensed God's voice telling me, hey, Proverbs 16:9, remember? You told me you wanted me to establish your steps. You in your heart, you had your plans, Dave, but you told me you wanted me to establish your steps, and this is the steps.
Yeah. I was
And
about to say that's so easy to say when life is great and your will and God's will line up perfectly, and it's as soon as that kind of divides a little bit, you're like, no, I really want to go this way, and God's like, well, no, you said, so
Yep.
we're going to do this.
Yep.
So that's one of those where it sounds so simple, and you're like, of course, Dave, of course I'll follow what God says until that's different than where you want to go.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's exactly what occurred to me probably 2 years ago.
Mm.
But I would tell somebody that I would say, read Proverbs 16:9. Tell me what if is God speaking to you? What do you see in that verse? And I would say, hey, look, if your whole objective is to go where the money is, that is a bad mistake.
Yeah.
When you get into a job where the culture is good. And so I would say you look for that culture that is good in a company or a boss.
Can you see that before you get into it? Like, do you think you can get a good idea of that in the interview phase, or you just kind of got to hop in?
No, I think you can get a pretty good idea of the individual that's interviewing you.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's, hey, you got to interview with 5 people. Back in the day it was interview with
something new, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That back then I interviewed with this one guy, and I just knew the job I was in was wrong. So that's what had me looking in other directions.
Yeah.
So you know when you're in a bad spot. So that's one indicator. Hey, look, something's off here. I don't like the culture. These people, they're driven by things that I don't want to be driven by, or whatever it may be. But when I got into this job, I would say the culture above my boss was not very good. So I did fight through some pretty questionable times.
Yeah.
Before things kind of, smoothed out, and the culture of old really took over. There was kind of an internal battle between the old culture and the new culture, and the old culture was much more healthy, which is why the company's doing so well today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, and I knew there wasn't a straight answer. It wasn't like, hey, be at the company for 30 years. That's just something I've noticed a difference just in talking to like older people versus younger people. And now there's a lot of people that say like, companies don't care about you. You need to be there for 18 months and then just move where the money is. Of course, that's all very secular. But I just think it's whenever I hear that someone has chosen to stay at a company, and of course there's people that can't leave, but the people that I think choose to be with the company, I'm always interested in, is it because you love what you do? Is it because you love the culture, or are you just loyal? And usually it's probably a combination of all those things.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it is a combination. But I would say for me, it just kept getting more clear with each year. Even with difficult times within the company, you don't always have great years. You meet new people. They're really, really good people. And the money's fine.
Yeah.
I'm sure not going to complain about it.
Yeah.
But if I was trying to make more money, I probably could.
Yeah.
But it's just so much more than that, and it's difficult to see that, particularly for younger people now. I mean, my kids, right now, I mean, things are expensive.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Interest rates now, what they were probably when I was their age. But it's other stuff's more expensive for sure. And so it's a very difficult thing. That's why every conversation with me, if you're in it long enough, comes back to God.
Yeah.
It has to come back to something. And if you're going to be driven by money, you're going to be miserable. You're probably going to take jobs that you don't want. You're probably going to compromise some ethics that you normally wouldn't. And again, I'm not saying money's bad. I'm saying the love of money is so horrible and so powerful. That's very dangerous.
Yeah.
I would never suggest somebody stay in a position for the money, nor would I suggest somebody stay in a position for the loyalty.
Yeah.
Because again, then it comes back to what is driving you, what is driving your decisions, and you got to go back to the heart of man establishes a plan, but God develops a path.
Mm-hmm.
You know, who do you want developing your path? And it should be God, who loves you more than anybody and knows, is all knowing.
Stephen, I think I got 2 more questions.
Okay.
You feel good about that?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes he'll just get like the hook, and he'll just hook people out of here and say we're done.
You can't prove that. I've never done that.
I just didn't know if you had any questions that you want to say, because before I do the last 2.
No.
One is like a serious one, and one's kind of a lighter one that we'll land the plane.
Keep it rolling.
That's the opposite of landing a plane. That was
Yeah.
taking off. One.
Is this a serious one?
This is the serious one.
Okay.
And then we'll do the lighter one. What, you can use me as kind of your subject of the person you're talking to, because I want to know, what is one thing either about management of people or leadership of people or anything like that? What would be like either the most important or an important thing to know, either about management or leadership? Because that's something I've always been interested in leadership, and the more I've been in ministry, the more I've realized like this is something that I need to grow in, whether it's communication, whether it's just taking care of people. So I'm always curious with that.
Well, I think there. I don't know if it's Andy Stanley or Craig Rochelle, 2 guys I listen to.
2 good ones.
Yeah. They have leadership podcasts as well.
Yeah.
And I think both of them have said this. And I write them down, but I can't ever remember exactly what they said. But it's people follow leaders that are real.
Mm.
I mean, you have to be real. You that's one thing that I would say.
Yeah.
As a leader, you have to love. I mean, again, it goes back to what's the greatest commandment, and the second one. And you have to be willing to have hard conversations. You know, so when I put that all together, real, loving, and having hard conversations, it goes back to exactly what Jesus would say, and that's, hey, you got to speak the truth in love in every situation.
Yeah.
I mean, love when they need to be loved, chastise when they need to be chastised, and just always be real.
Is the way that you get better at hard conversations just repetition, or how do you go about that? How do you grow that muscle?
Well, you just implied that I'm good at it, which I'm not.
Maybe I should imply that you've just done it more times than me.
Yeah, there's it depends on how hard the conversation is. It's sometimes it's just awful.
Yeah.
Because people just are not self-aware. You know, you got to make sure you do it before you're real good and pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine.
Okay. It's. I mean, it's a relationship.
Yeah.
And when someone knows that you're real, and someone knows that you love them, and someone knows that you're going to speak the truth, their productivity is maximized, in my opinion. Yeah. Now, is that always maximized to the point where they get to keep their job?
Yeah.
You know, I've had the experience of terminating people, and it's absolutely the most awful thing.
Yeah.
It's awful.
No, that's not really something I've had to do yet, but I know lots of people who have done it, and that's, you know, I don't think I've ever heard anyone just say like, oh, it's no big deal. I think every single person I've talked to is like having like productivity conversations or termination conversations are just hard, and the termination ones are the worst.
Well, I wouldn't want to be under the person that doesn't hate termination conversations.
Exactly.
True.
Great point.
Yeah. I think that's the mark of a good leader as well, is feeling it when you have to lose people.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Craig Rochelle had, I don't think it's his latest one that he did. He did a couple of episodes on how to make and keep momentum that I thought were really interesting.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's kind of like the weird magical thing that everyone wants but nobody can get or keep. And when you see people that have momentum, you're like, holy smokes, how are they doing that? And how do they keep doing it? And so that was something I thought was really interesting. And he has his leadership podcast is great.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
But I don't know why I threw that out. I just thought it was interesting. All right. Last thing that we'll go on. Is pickleball better than tennis?
Ooh.
I feel like I was going to get you with this one.
Yeah,
Have you injured yourself yet in playing pickleball?
Well, I injure myself when I play anything at my age. I'm a tennis guy.
I know. This is why I asked you.
I roll with tennis. I'm going to answer
But I have heard that you and Wendy will throw down on some pickleball. Maybe even you pelting people in the forehead with a pickleball.
Oh, did you hear that from last night?
No, did you do it last night?
Yes, to the sweet little girl that I didn't even know her.
Look, if you
But she was on my team. That's what was so bad.
No, I've heard that if you try to get up on the net on Dave Thomas, he's going to hit you because you can't get up in his kitchen.
It depends who it is, Logan. It depends. If it's my son or my son-in-law, last night, if it was Nick Wilson, I'm going to smoke the ball at you.
That's just how it goes.
I mean, what? I mean,
were you the guy in tennis though that would just aim at the forehead and just to get the point?
Here's how I would define myself as the tennis guy is
yeah.
I'm not good enough to be completely accurate. How's that?
Sure.
So have I hit a few people? And,
yeah. You're just an amateur here.
I never once. I don't know that I ever once intentionally hit anybody. But pickleball's a blast now. Look, if it helps if you play tennis,
it does help.
But if not, you should definitely, if you're trying to pick one or the other, pickleball is the way to go right now because it's hot.
It is very.
And you
hot.
can we do it in our driveway all the time.
And y'all have got a good driveway for it.
We do
flat,
have It's a little short, makes the court a little bit short, but still we have some throwdowns. Me and Sam Thomas taking on Morgan Alexander and Matt Thomas. Me and Ashley taking on Morgan and Matt or Sam. Oh, yeah.
And you're just...
Brooke's really good.
You're just working Morgan, I'm sure.
Yeah, now that I think about it, me and Morgan aren't on the same team much.
I'm sure there's no reason. There's no way that's intentional. Just like you hitting him.
No, at this point in time, hey, look, he's my daughter's husband. He's father of my grandkids.
I'm a big fan
he's one of us.
I'm a big fan of Morgan Alexander. I don't know if I should have said that on air, but I'm a big fan.
Yeah, the guy's got a huge heart. I have watched him grow in ways, over the last 12 months that has been wonderful. It's hard when you have a baby girl. A guy's good enough for your daughter. I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. Nothing against the guy.
Yeah. But, oh, yeah. Well, we both have boys, so we'll see how that goes. But I definitely walked through that. I married someone who had a father that was like, I don't think anyone's good enough, but I really don't think you're good enough. And we're going to have to really watch this and make sure we're okay with it.
Yep.
And we got to the marriage, and he was like, I still don't know if I'm okay with it, but I'm going to trust God that this is going to work out.
Yep.
But
I think Glenn always liked me.
Oh, you think so?
I think so.
You think just even in his heart of hearts, he was like, he's incredible.
Who does Glenn not like?
Exactly.
It's Kathy that I would have been worried about in that part.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Glenn, he's just a big teddy bear.
I don't think so. I mean, I think with his daughter, I think there's a little bit that was like, I'm gonna keep an eye on him.
I never saw it. You're probably right, but I never saw it. I never.
Well, now that I guarantee you probably never saw it.
Yeah.
I definitely saw it.
My father-in-law, I asked him, I said, hey, I just wanted to ask permission to marry your daughter. And he said no. And then he was like, I'm just kidding. And I was like, man, dude, you're a sorry kidder. Because
wrong. You sounded real serious.
Yeah.
When I asked Glenn if I could marry Anna, we were eating in a restaurant, and I asked him, and he said yes, and he was really happy. And I was telling him, yeah, I'm going to propose, like giving him the whole plan. Told him I was going to propose next month, and there's a disconnect somewhere in that conversation where he didn't hear the propose part. So he when I said next month, he stopped and like he was about to take a bite and the food on his fork fell off, and he went, "Next month?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then I had this moment where I realized he probably didn't hear me say propose. I was like, "Proposing next month." So he was like, "I thought you were saying you guys were getting married next month."
Yeah.
So almost gave Glenn a heart attack.
Did he cry?
No.
I would have expected him.
Did
to
Megan's
be crying.
dad cry?
No. He did our wedding. You mean at the when I asked for the blessing?
Yeah.
No. We went to Trace Grill and he avoided me for 3 hours. He didn't stop talking for 2.5 hours. So I couldn't get a word in. And then he saw people he knew and went and talked to them for 30 minutes. And so finally he sat back down. As soon as his butt hit the chair, I said, "Hey, I want to marry Megan."
Do you think he knew that and he was just making you sweat?
100%.
Yeah.
And then he gave me 5 things that I had to do before we got married. And one was like read Ephesians 5 times. Another was like don't have sex. I was like done. And other things, there were some that were easy. And it was like reading Ephesians, and it was like there was another one. It was like make sure you have a job, but I was already working at that point. And so, but the crazy part is that now we've been married 7 years, and if you ask him about that, he'll say, "I didn't do that." He said, "We sat down." I said, "Yes," and I was like, "You're a liar! Like you're a dirty liar." And he's like, "We just remember things differently."
Well, you don't have to call him a dirty liar. Just a liar's
I
good
will.
enough.
He deserves it. But are you still playing tennis?
Yeah, I'm going to play this afternoon, this evening. I'm going to try. I got this.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to work.
So I don't know anything about tennis. I enjoy playing with my dad. I've never played like organized
Yeah,
tennis.
your dad's good. Was good. Does he still play?
No, he got into running and cycling. He's about
Okay.
it. But he played for so long. I think he got up to like a 4.5, and
Yeah.
so he can walk out there and he's just got the touch
Yeah,
still.
Yeah.
I have a buddy though that just got into playing, and he's been playing. I forgot what they called it, like a tri-league.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that? Where you're like on a team of like 8 people, and you do like doubles, mixed doubles, and something.
Yeah. So here's my mindset on mixed doubles.
Give it
You
to
ready
me.
for this?
I'm ready.
So I'm sure this would. I'm not a proponent of mixed doubles unless your wife's on the same team.
Because my dad had the opposite thing. When I was single, he was like, the only thing that you should be doing is playing mixed doubles.
I would agree with that too.
Yep. I feel like that was 2 sides of the same coin.
There's so many different leagues you can get in. I'm on a combo league
Okay.
where it's 4-0 and 3-5, so a 7-5 combo league. I don't know what the try. I guess the try is there's 4-0s, 3-5s, and 3-0s.
Yeah,
I don't.
it was 3-0s, 3. Yeah, what you just said.
Okay.
Because he was playing as a 3-0.
Okay.
But are 4s and 3-5s playing together as doubles?
Yeah. So
Can you pick out who's a 3-5 pretty easily?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of the things where I played baseball up until 10th grade and then got cut, which was a whole thing, and then played football. And so one of my only regrets is that my sports were sports that adults can't play.
Right.
And I always wish that I had gotten into either tennis, golf, or something.
Yeah.
Because it was in college. I had friends that played like tennis for PCS down in Hattiesburg, and so they at least knew how to play. And so I played with them a lot at MC. But that was like one of the few regrets I have is like I kind of wish I would have done something that like as a 30-year-old I could still like
What
go
about
do.
softball? You can still do softball.
I can
though,
just
right?
do, yeah. That's kind of the baseball thing.
Yeah.
But I guess it is a sport. I was about to downplay that, but like that is a sport. So, but I enjoy it.
It is a sport.
It is a sport. Another one where a lot of people get injured. That's a good time.
Yes.
That's the funny thing is people now are like more injuries are happening now because of pickleball than anything else because everyone's just ripping ACLs and calves and all kinds of stuff. It's great.
It is. It is. It is great. If you like when people get hurt.
if you're in orthopedics, it's great.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
all right. Anything else you want to talk about? Anything that you want to drop a bomb on here for everybody to know?
Nope. No.
Any more than you've already done?
No. Yeah. I mean, I did go back and listen to this. I'm wondering what I really said.
It was great. I didn't hear anything other than you saying sucks and pissed off and all that. Well, we'll bleep all that out for people, but I think it'll be fine.
What do you think people would do if I did censor it and just made people think he said
Yeah,
something
that would be way
worse?
worse
Yeah.
because they think you really let loose.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this was fun. I mean, I'm honored that you asked.
Yeah.
I think it's somewhat therapeutic as well.
It's been good. I've enjoyed it. You know, we've had people. There are people that listen, and there are people that say that they like it, which has been huge for me. I figured we were going to be goose eggs on all the above.
So is this kind of like you hey, we're going to do a podcast, and it's almost like an Instagram or a TikTok? How many likes do you get?
Sort of. So we do. The thing that makes this a little bit different from what we've done in the past is, one, it's a show, so it's video.
Oh, okay.
But then-
I didn't even know it was video.
Yeah, look,
That's why we have
that's
two
you
cameras.
over there.
Well, I saw that, but I was like,
Yeah.
That's not a mic camera, Dave. That's a camera.
oh, I didn't even know about that one.
Yeah.
Hey, Mom.
But so this will be on YouTube like we've always done, but then we'll put it on Instagram and stuff, and we'll do clips of it. And so Steven will take 60 seconds of you talking about pickleball, and he'll put on there like, Dave loves pickleball or something. And so that's been interesting because there's people who aren't involved with Ridgecrest that maybe know me or know Steven or know whoever, and they'll say like, hey, I see your video on pickleball. And so you're kind of reaching more people. And the thought of it was, so many people are on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, doing that kind of stuff. We're not on TikTok, but same thing. That maybe we can start to pull them to some of our other stuff. So like, you come here to hear about Dave or to hear us talk about whatever, and then we always say at the end, like, hey, take a look around, and like, if you see Greg's choir talks, like, go check those out because they're fantastic. Or if you want to see one of our live streams, we're kind of hoping that this podcast is helpful for people and fun, but then also that it pulls people into kind of our other stuff.
Okay, well, let me drop a bomb then.
Let's do it.
Okay, if you're watching, we teach a class.
Yes.
And I don't even want to say teach. We facilitate a discussion 9:00 on Sunday mornings. It's not really 9:00. It's supposed to be 9:00, but it's really not. Of young adults, maybe just newlyweds.
Yeah.
That type. I can't really figure out how to define it. But if you're looking for a place to try to fit in and just have some really, really open and honest discussion, come on.
Yeah. It's kind of like anyone in your 20s. Do you have people in your 30s?
I think we might have one that's about 30,
Yeah.
maybe 31, but
Not that you get kicked out once you're 29.
no,
and a
not
half.
at all. Because
Yeah.
it's not like we sit there and we talk about marriage things.
Right.
You know, that might be a totally separate thing that we would do. It's
Mhm.
just more. It depends. We did Experiencing God one time. You know, we're following some of the other stuff, but I do think that it's. I would consider my approach very unconventional.
Oh,
I would say
the facilitation aspect?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when is that?
Sunday morning, 9:00. If you get
Ish.
there at 9:30, you'll be right on time.
The conversation will be just about to begin.
That's about the truth.
Yeah. Good. Steven, what do you want to say? Any plugs? Any ads? Any, I don't know. I'm just talking at this point.
If you'd like to join the AV team, we need camera operators.
Yeah,
Really
we
bad.
do.
Yeah, and a sound operator. So if you know a guy
Who likes to push buttons?
or a gal,
yeah,
anybody.
we're not like that.
No, we're not.
We'll do whatever.
we're not like that.
Or we are like that.
I lost.
I'm going to
I
stop
lost the
talking
thread.
before we get
This
in really
might be where
big
you
trouble
need to
here. All right. Sounds good. Thanks for coming. This was
Man,
fun.
it was a blast. I appreciate you guys,
Yeah.
and I appreciate what you're trying to do for sure.
It was a fun time. All right. We'll get out of here.